Hi everyone, it's Rachel, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to make some different designs of crewmates from the game Among Us. I hope you find this tutorial helpful, so let's get started. First up, take a ball of the colour that you would like to use for your Among Us character. To begin, I'm starting off using this pink coloured polymer clay. Place your ball of clay on your work surface and roll it down on its side to make it more of an oval shape. Then you can see here I'm just kind of pinching the top to make it a bit more even and blend out the line from where I rolled it. So once you've made the body shape, it's time to create the legs. For this, I'm taking a paintbrush and I'm going to be using the handle, but you could use any other tools that you would like. I just pressed the handle into one end to make an indent which creates the two legs, and then as you can see the lines are still quite harsh, so I went ahead and smoothed it out with my fingers to make them more rounded. So this is what the body currently looks like. To make the oxygen pack or tank, take some more clay the same colour as the body and you want to shape this into a little square. So I firstly flattened my clay down and then I pushed in the sides to make them straight. You can then flip over your character and position the pack onto the body. Now to make the eyepiece or helmet, you want to take some light blue clay and shape it into an oval, and then you can just go ahead and position this onto the front of the character. For extra details here, I'm adding the little light reflections and shadows. So for the light reflection, I attached on a small ball of white clay to the top part of the helmet, and then I also rolled a coil of some grey polymer clay and I attached this onto the bottom of the helmet for the shadow. To finish off, we are going to add a black rim around the outside, so roll a coil of black clay on your work surface until you get the thickness that you would like. Then you can very carefully wrap this around the helmet and cut off any excess clay that you have. Here you can see that I accidentally pushed some of the black clay onto the body, so here I'm just very carefully scraping it off with a blade. So I just then went ahead and repeated these same steps with my other colours for the other crewmates, and here's just a quick time lapse of me doing that before I show you how to make the different designs of hats. So first up, I'll be showing you how to make the crown. For this, you want to use some yellow polymer clay, and I started off with a small ball which I rolled on my work surface to create a coil. Next, use a rolling pin or a round tool to roll and flatten down the coil. You'll want to trim off the ends and also one side of the clay so that you have a straight edge. Next, to make the points of the crown, you're going to go along the top and cut out some triangles using your blade. I just kept going along until I got all the way to the end. I then wrapped this clay around the handle of one of my tools, which I thought was a good size, and this just helped me to get the round shape of the crown. I kind of pinched the ends together with my fingers to try and blend them, and then I very carefully removed the crown from the handle and placed it on top of the character. If you would like to make it into a charm, go ahead and add an eye pin, and then you can bake it in your oven according to your package's instructions. Next up, we are going to be making the chef's hat. To begin, I took 2 balls of white clay. I firstly took the large one and I began adding some indents using my needle tool, almost so that it looked like a little miniature pumpkin. I then created an indent in the center using a dotting tool, and I placed in a small ball of white clay for the little button where the fabric meets. I then took the other piece of white clay that I had at the beginning and I rolled it into a cylinder which I positioned on the top of the head and I pushed down. Then to this I added the top of the chef's hat and I made sure that it was centered and looking okay before then adding my eye pin to make it into a charm and baking it in the oven. Next up we have the devil's horns, and I'm going to be doing this on the red crewmate. So I began with 2 balls of red clay and I rolled these down into teardrops. Here you can see that I'm doing this on a sheet of paper because there's more friction and I wanted to prevent the clay from slipping around on my work surface. Once I had created the teardrops, I then bent the clay so that each one had a curve. Then use your blade to trim off the rounded part so that you have a flat surface to work with, and then you can go ahead and position these onto either side of the head. Add an eye pin if you would like to make it into a charm, and then you can bake it according to your package's instructions. Next up we are making the plant hat, and this is the skin I usually use, the purple crewmate with the plant hat, just in case you were wondering. So we begin with 2 balls of green clay and you want to take each one and flatten it down and then pinch one side to create a teardrop or a leaf shape. I then use my needle tool to create an indent straight down the center of the leaf, and I did this with each of the balls of clay. You then want to position these either side of one another, and then you can add the little stem to the head before also attaching on the leaves. Don't forget to add an eye pin if you would like to make it into a charm, and then bake it in your oven according to your package's instructions. The next one we're going to be making is the bear hat or bear ears. So to start off, I took a small ball of brown clay which I pushed down and pinched on one side, similar to the leaf because you want to make a little teardrop shape. I then did the exact same thing to a smaller piece of tan coloured clay which I then positioned on top of the brown clay. Next, using your blade, cut off the pointed end this time so that you have a flat surface to work with, and you want to make 2 of these. Once you've done that, you can then position the ears onto the body. Add an eye pin to make it into a charm, and then you can bake it in your oven. This next one I'm showing you how to make is the flower hat, which I'm going to be placing on the pink crewmate. So I firstly began with a coil of light pink clay, and then using my blade I cut off 5 even sections, and these are going to become the flower's petals. I shaped each of the petals into that teardrop shape again, and then I began placing them onto the head in a flower shape. I added a small ball of yellow clay to the center, and then on one side I also attached on a little green leaf. Add an eye pin if you'd like to make it into a charm, and then you can bake it in your oven. Next up we have the banana hat, which is pretty much just a banana peel. So start off with 3 balls of yellow clay and roll each of them down into a coil which has pointed ends. You'll also want to flatten these down slightly. Next we're going to attach them all together to make our banana shape. I then roll this very gently between my fingers to smooth it out and blend the joins. You can then curl out the very end of each banana peel and then position this onto your crewmate's head. For an extra detail, I took a small piece of brown clay and attached it on for the stalk or the stem, and then I went ahead and added an eye pin and baked it in the oven. Now we're going to be making the crewmate hat on a white crewmate, and I guess this design is kind of inspired by the skin that James Charles usually uses when he plays Among Us. So I firstly started off with a little cylinder of white clay which I attached on the head of a crewmate. I then made the legs by rolling out 2 thin coils of clay, and then I cut off a piece and attached these to the little body, kind of hanging them over the crewmate's face. The ones that I'm showing here I found were actually too long, so I removed them in the end and made them slightly shorter. Add a tiny little backpack onto the back of the crewmate's body, and then you can also attach on a small piece of blue clay for the helmet and a thin strip of black clay around the helmet for the rim. Add an eye pin to make it into a charm, and then you can bake it in your oven. Next up is the brain slug hat, which kind of looks like a little green alien. Start off with a ball of green polymer clay and roll it on your work surface so that it's more of an oval shape. To make the legs or tentacles of the slug, what I did was I pinched the clay and kind of pulled on it, and I just kept going around to perfect the shape until I had 3 even-sized tentacles. You then want to add this onto your crewmate's head, and then you can perfect the shape a little bit more as you would like. For the eye, I attached on a small ball of white clay, and then I rolled a thin coil of black clay to create a rim again, kind of the same method as I have for the crewmates, just wrapping it around the outside and cutting off the excess. Add a small piece of black clay for the eye, and then you can also attach on a very thin spike of clay for the little antenna on top. Don't forget to add an eye pin to make it into a charm, and then you can bake it in your oven according to your package's instructions. The last hat I'm going to be showing you how to make is the Flowerpot hat. I began with a ball of brown clay, which I rolled on my work surface to create a cylinder. You can then position this on the center of your crewmate's head. Next, roll a thin coil of the same color brown clay on your work surface, and then you can flatten it down with a rolling pin or one of your tools. You can use a blade to trim the sides to make them nice and neat. Then begin wrapping these pieces of clay around the pot for the rims. Add one to the top and one to the bottom of the cylinder, and just cut away any excess clay. Next, add a little stem with some green clay, and also add some leaves on either side. To make the little flower, I flattened down a ball of red clay, and then I just used my needle tool to go around the outside and add some little indents to create the petals. I made an indent in the center with one of my ball tools, and then I positioned in a small ball of yellow clay. I then attached the flower to the stem, and I added an eye pin to make it into a charm. Here's what all my crewmates look like together before I went ahead and baked them. After baking, I took some super glue and I used this to secure the eye pins so that they wouldn't fall out. Finally, I added a coat of UV resin to each charm as my glaze to make them nice and shiny. So here's what the finished Among Us crewmates look like once they're all done. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel to see lots more crafty videos. Thank you for watching and I'll see you next time. Bye guys!